Welcome back to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast and our YouTube channel. We are here on Selection Sunday with Committee Chair Tom Burnett. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Let's get right to it. My first question for you is, what team, no matter if it was in or out or on a seed line, what was the hardest decision, the tightest decision of any that the committee had to grapple with?
Matt, I would say that probably toward the end, we had a number of teams that were on our under consideration list that were also playing late into the conference tournament. So it really slowed down the process to some degree. We had to go really late last night, obviously watching Virginia Tech, watching teams like Texas A&M, Iowa today, certainly kept the attention of the committee. So, again, the process is built to do that. It's just that we may have been a little bit later in completing our work than we might normally be in a given year. But, it's good to have tough decisions, that's for sure.
You mentioned Virginia Tech real quick. I was at that game. Did the Hokies need to win that game to ensure they made the tournament? Would they have been out if they had lost to Duke?
Well, the reality of it is, again, we stopped our work and really wanted to watch that game finish up. And in the end, we never really had to ask that question of the committee because, Virginia Tech obviously won the AQ. Thus, we kind of moved on to other business that had been settled for us. So we just never got to that moment.
Okay. Dayton just misses out because you had Richmond get an automatic qualifier there. Rutgers is also in. Those teams have somewhat similar resumes in terms of very high highs and some glaring lows. Why Rutgers in, but a few spots ahead of Dayton? And can you speak to the variety of resumes? And was there a lot of disagreement because you had a lot of teams that missed this cut line, Tom, that had different attributes that were positive versus ones that wound up making it into the field?
Well, the committee can have a lot of disagreements, certainly. That they're all very collegial and professional, but certainly some differing opinions. And all of us bring a different perspective in from our conference monitoring reports. Certainly Rutgers is a team with a lot of quality wins. We talk about the quad one wins. Certainly Rutgers has that. Certainly, like any team, no one's perfect. They have some blemishes and such. So there's teams like that certainly are going to be in and some that are going to be out. And that's just kind of a normal operating practice. But, all of these teams, kept us very busy, certainly down the stretch here. And, that's certainly a good problem for the committee to have. And I was very pleased that we were able to work through what we did. And certainly, we'll leave some of the arguments, on who should have been in, who should not be in to the others.
For those who are seeing that Rutgers made the field, is the lesson to be learned here that is, if you get enough high-end wins, it offsets really, really bad losses? Because clearly Rutgers had worse losses and more of them than any other team that was considered for the cut line or near it.
Yeah, I don't know that it completely offsets it. It's again, Matt, as you know, we use the term entire body of work, and we're very serious about that. It starts in November. You mentioned a team like Dayton. Dayton was a very young team this year. They stumbled early. They had some quad four losses. But then they also beat Kansas. They beat Miami. They beat a very good Belmont team. So there's a balance in there that each individual committee member needs to find. And, that's ultimately in the mix of everything we do as a committee.
When you look at Tennessee, that's going to be the team that makes a lot of noise in terms of where it's not seeded, and that's on the 2 line. Tom, I'd say there's no defense at not putting the Vols as a number 2 seed. In fact, if you really wanted to make an argument, I think you could even push as high as for Tennessee to be the highest ranked 2, whereas Duke to remain on the 2 line is baffling. So 2-part question. Why is Tennessee a 3? And 2, is it not fair to say that the conference championship games that happen on Sunday really don't have much of an impact because A&M wasn't even the first team out. Tennessee wins its conference championship, and yet that's not reflected in the nature of where it landed from a seed perspective.
Yeah, I would say that, we can't just look at Tennessee in a vacuum. We're looking at everything around them. We're looking at Wisconsin, who we had on the seed list just above them. Wisconsin has had a very fine season, certainly, and a lot of quad one wins. They've shared a championship this year. So that factors into, again, what the 12 committee members think independently. And certainly, there's probably some disagreement in our room as well. But when the votes are tabulated and such, we had Tennessee kind of where you saw them. And, with all due respect, they're a fantastic team, and we expect them to be very successful in the weeks ahead.
And so what you're saying here, I want to be clear for our listeners and viewers. So there could have you've got 12 committee members, and there could have very well been a scenario that played out here where 5 people thought Tennessee absolutely should be on the 2 line. They voted for him, and they might have been outvoted by, say, 7 people who saw Tennessee as a 3. Is it conceivable that kind of situation would have played out here?
Well, certainly, because the balloting is secret,
Mhm.
when we get into the scrubbing conversation, it's a more public, open conversation. So it's hard for me to make a determination what might be on someone else's ballot or when they come in. Certainly, I have some thoughts and such, and I think the committee too, has to take Auburn and Kentucky into account when they review the SEC teams and such, and perhaps that came into play as well in some of the balloting.
And with Tennessee specifically, you compared them against a team like Wisconsin. I mean, Tennessee's a team that all of its losses, there were 7 of them, that they were all in quad one, and they had 11. Wisconsin didn't rate nearly as well in the metrics. It had 9 quad one losses, had 2 quad twos and 2 quad threes. So can you take us into the committee room before I let you go here and explain how those discussions play out? Are people in the room actually lobbying for, say, a Tennessee over Wisconsin and specifically pointing out those things, and it just becomes a matter of voting again and voting again? That's how you scrub it?
Well, I think there is a repetition to the voting. I don't know that I would call it lobbying or what. I think the committee members all have great questions of those that are monitoring, and certainly we're spending a lot of time with the committee member that monitors the SEC, the committee member that monitors the Big Ten. So again, it's a lot of opinions, obviously, that can lead to a lot of disagreement and such. But that's just been part of what this process is. And, Tennessee's a fine team. Wisconsin's a fine team. We look forward to them sorting it out over the next few weeks.
Tom, it's tight. This is an all-time memorable Selection Sunday for a variety of reasons, but I want to thank you for taking a quick few minutes answering these questions. We appreciate your time, and congrats on 5 years on the committee. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Matt.